teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a little bit of a difficult, uncomfortable discussion to have. I'm not going to be reacting, I will be recapping because the live Foodie did yesterday isn't something I would want to replay on my channel. I think we can discuss it without including the footage. So we're going to start by looking at the community post she put up and then later took down right after the stream and a little bit after the stream. She has since edited those and now there's just a PayPal link. Once we've done that, we're going to recap through the stream a little bit. I was actually of two minds as to whether I wanted to cover this at all, because on one hand, I find what she did, which was, if you didn't catch, I think everyone knows at this point, but to bring an additional needs child onto her channel as a way to raise money felt incredibly exploitative. And on one hand, which is why I'm uncomfortable showing the footage again here and reacting to it, you don't want to be part of that process. But on the other, I do think this is something that shouldn't be ignored and should be talked about. The thing is, when it comes to Foodie, the community is very hyper reactive. And I do realize I'm saying this as a reactor, as someone who literally makes videos. But one thing having that level of emotion can do is really camouflage when she has these distinguishing moments that are significantly worse than her regular day-to-day. Because she is at a point where there's a large percentage of people who look at her and go straight to 100 with anything she does. Now, personally, I believe she's got enough terrible stuff that she has done that we don't need to pearl clutch, really. And apologies if you are offended by that term. I do realize there's a certain sensitivity that develops when she just keeps going and going and going. But I feel that yesterday, the way she handled yesterday really was one of those distinguishing points that we will refer back to again and again as, no, this is one of those watershed moments. This is one of those actions that I would consider to be a clear-cut line of, oh God, she actually just did that. In a way that I feel anybody really with not much knowledge of the space would be able to come in and say, oh, what? She did what? If you step outside of the mess that is car world, this is something a bystander could point at and say, not right. No, that's not okay. So we will get into my notes that I made on the live stream, but let's first look at, I believe there were three. These were the three I caught because when this started kicking off, I literally got out of bed. I checked Twitter and was like, sorry, what? And I went out and watched the live stream. Because I had a feeling, I think it's actually still up, which is a bit shocking, but I had a feeling it would have come down by now, and so I wanted to see what was going on. Thanks for the support also. For the rest, well, how is it exploiting a child for money when the money is going to help her? All of it. Lol, does that make any sense? Shocking knowledge for everybody, but Foodie is not a reliable person. She's not an honest person. And she has a history of asking for money for certain reasons that look beneficial to an animal or another person, and then not following up with actually benefiting them. We saw this with the cats and the vet visits that got paid for but never done. We saw it with Pete's when she was like, oh, I'll give Pete's the money from this video or this live stream. And she made a lot of money, and then was like, no, I haven't given him the money, but I'm gonna buy him a laptop. So then he didn't have the choice of how the money was spent. And we don't know the exact amount that she made. And of course, most recently, we have the issue with Bruce the kitten that got her moved out of Kuwait. The call for prayer has started, by the way, you might hear it as I'm talking. If you want to help somebody, Foodie is never gonna be a good choice to do it. She's just not reliable in that way. If I didn't show her, I would get accused of making her up for money. Yeah, because you've got some actions in your past that would make that very likely. But in this case, showing her did not prove that she would get the money. precisely because of that past. The reason it's exploitative is because this child is a vulnerable person. All children are, particularly because she has additional needs. She cannot understand what it is you're doing. And there's actually a few parts to that. It's not just that she's a child. It's not just that she has these special needs. It's also, there was a big language barrier there, because she's going to go on and talk about how the parents gave permission. And we'll get to that in a minute. So she goes on to have a bit of a dig at FFG for running a fundraiser. How is it also okay for a certain reaction channel to exploit the poor in Syria by asking for donations just to spite me or try to look more charitable than me when I have no control about how many donate, etc.? This person didn't care at all about the cause before I came here. That is exploitation, in my opinion. Who was she exploiting though? Now, I don't know FFG like that. I know she's a very polarizing person within the space, and I'm not on any side, okay? But who was FFG exploiting? Because if the money went where it was supposed to go, whether she's got a moral high ground for doing it doesn't change the fact that the money would have gone where it was supposed to go. Hey, Editing Milk here. Just because I know I'm going to have to say it, this is not a conversation about FFG or the BBJ situation. Please don't make it into one. I don't need it down in my comments. Thank you. Looking better than Foodie is a low bar. But if I had to pick a difference there, it would be that charity streams done through YouTube can go to the places it's supposed to be because there's no middleman of the creator. You don't have to have a history of helping someone to have an action you do help someone. Moving on. Sassa's family is aware of reaction channels and hateful people online, and we will not give it any more attention. I cannot believe for a second that that family is aware of Foodie's history, because there is absolutely no way, even if Salah was translating for her, there is no way that Foodie would have shared her true history on the internet, because it's appalling. Now, do I side-eye the family? Maybe a bit, maybe not a bit. If you are exposing your vulnerable child to the internet, I would have more care than they necessarily have had. However, if you have a friend or a family member through Salah, you would trust them to an extent. And if you are a family that needs support for your daughter and doesn't have the means of getting it for her, I can see them taking the chance to try and make her education more accessible through any means. So do I feel good about it? No. Do I maybe understand why they might have given permission? Yes. However, Foodie is completely aware of what her community is. There is no excuse for her. This should never have happened. Her channel, her part of the internet, is not a safe space for a vulnerable person. So back to this, we are just trying to do a good thing, then use good methods. Now, people ask me if I regret using the R word, which she used, 2-3 days ago? It always comes out when I am super, super angry. Yes, because it's part of your vernacular when it shouldn't be. And I never use it against people with special needs. If you use it, the nature of the word is that it's against people with special needs. But honestly, now having a personal relationship with Sassa and someone with special needs, I do feel bad for those past actions and will never use that word again. I do not believe it. Because she has had that realization before and she still uses it with the excuse of, well, it used to be okay. She is so sweet, I agree, she's very sweet, and deserves the world, I agree. Foodie is not the method to get it to her. Shortly after, people obviously had something to say about what was happening. It's messed up that the ghouls of Girl World are trying to make something good into a very bad thing, just like with Bruce, so they can keep their vile channels up and running. No one cares. A lot of people care at this point. I got the sense that a lot of people were reporting this stream, And I don't even think at this point that the reasons were far-fetched. I do sometimes think that. I think that people are, like I say, overly reactive in some ways. I don't think this was one of those situations. Here's something else I don't like about this sentence. I think she is using this situation as a do-over justification for the Bruce thing. Because in my head, her picking up a kitten and her having this girl on camera is the same thing. And all of it comes into the same pot of, no, look, I'm a good person. It's just the terrible reactors. It's just the terrible community that twists me. There are ways that Foodie could have supported this girl, and we will talk about that, and this wasn't it. I'm going to keep doing what I want for the good of others or animals. Again, same thing to her. For the good of others or animals in need, and y'all can stay mad and keep reeing. What a choice of phrase, given the current conversation. She then comes back about 10-11 minutes later and says, as for accessing my money, we found a way and will be traveling to Lebanon maybe end of next month. In the meantime, Salah has been helping this family and many others since he moved here alone to begin with. Also, for those asking for PayPal for direct donations, please send them to her PayPal. Please don't do that. No money sent for Sasa will go to me, and I will provide receipts as usual. I think she'll act exactly as usual, and that's the problem. These community posts have now come down. The only thing that remains now is a small post just saying, also for those asking for PayPal for direct donations, please send to, and her PayPal. Which is a choice considering the PayPal link was one of the problems, as I don't believe she's allowed to ask for donations through it, and I don't believe PayPal serves people in Syria. Now there is a whole host and number of problems with what she is doing. Let's talk a little bit more about the stream and we will get into those. So Foodie came on camera with a lovely little girl who has Down syndrome. And she says that she wants to help with the schooling. Now that little girl, as I say, shouldn't be on camera. And the way that Foodie is trying to elicit this money should not be done through this method. But she tells us a little bit, says her parents can't afford to keep sending her to the special school as the fees are about $1,000 a year. Now, there was a screenshot going around Twitter that I think had originally came from the farms, saying that the costs for specialized education are not that high for the providers that have it in Syria. Now, we don't know if she was actually in Syria when she did this. They did disappear for a few days. Salah got his foot operated on, and one presumes they went somewhere to go and get money because YouTube payday came around. That is a presumption to me though. So she tells people they will donate the proceeds of the stream and any super chats to this little girl's education. She also says that we do help and we will help. So which is it? You do or you will. And we are not rich either. She asked people to watch ads all the way to the end to help support this, which I'm pretty sure is against terms of service. I feel like there was a conversation about that when ads started to be a bigger thing a few years back. And as we talked about a minute ago, she says that the parents have given permission and are aware of the internet and her channel. I think it's possible that the parents could be aware of like the couple's channel. That would be the one to show them. And with her filming that lady Noor as cooking the Arabic dishes, they've obviously had some kind of conversation that she is a YouTube creator. But I can't see a situation where her or Salah would think it would be a good idea to show the Foodie Beauty channel. So I feel like if anything, they've maybe showed her the couple's channel, if they did. Just to reiterate, this is not a safe environment for a vulnerable individual of any age. As a separate disgusting thing, there was someone in her chat making absolutely inappropriate paedophilic remarks about this little girl. Now, one of the questions here would be, hey Chantel, you said you had no access to your money. So how on earth are you going to use the money that you receive here to benefit this little girl? Conveniently enough, She claims that just recently they found a way to access her money. As I say, that was probably part of what they were doing when they got Salah's foot seen to. She does talk about this again in a minute, in a way that kind of blew my mind. But here's a question that I had when we heard that. Chantel has said several times that she hasn't spent any of her money since getting there. She couldn't access it, she couldn't get it out of the ATMs. Obviously she brought some money with her, I think. But she's claimed at least that Salah has been paying for everything, that her money remains in her Canadian account, and that it can just build up while they're there. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, at some point recently she did also say that she pays for the food, so I'm not sure how that gels. I don't know what their cash reserves are like. But they've bought some bigger ticket items, like the solar panel, and Salah is still trying to fix up his house, so clearly they're getting money from somewhere. Now, $1,000 is a lot of money. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it isn't. But $1,000 a year is not out of reach for Chantel in the way that it may be out of reach for this girl's family. If this is important to her, which absolutely it could be, let's give her the benefit of that doubt and say, no, she just wants to help a child, which I realise would be naive at this point. I'm saying it for the sake of the argument. She could provide this money to this child and not involve her internet audience. Even if she were a trustworthy person, this didn't break TOS, which she's not and it does, there would be a delay on her receiving this money, which she is going to talk about. So what she's actually saying is, oh, I feel bad for this kid and I want you to pay for it, not me. But let's look at Chantel fixing this problem herself. It's $1,000 a year, if it exists. Because as I say, there is a screenshot going around saying that the actual cost within Syria is lower. She does later mention, it's for her fees and like her clothes and stuff. It's to generally support her going into education because educational fees are not the only thing you pay in a school. She didn't say that, I'm adding that. But let's talk about her spending for a moment. Let's be generous and say she only goes to KFG 3 times a week. I think she is mainlining that place. But let's say, she said a meal for 2 of them was $11, $12. 3 times a week, $30, $40-ish. So in a year, she could have over $1,500 and that would solve that entire problem just by giving up KFG. She could make content out of it if she really wanted, saying, hey, I'm sponsoring somebody, I want to give up KFG for my health, and I think this would be a really great way to motivate me and see that money going to good use. She could sponsor this child over what she says is needed to cover the other costs as well, making a real difference to this girl's life, and she could do it with very little inconvenience to herself. You're talking about her putting aside $100 a month. Because do I believe that this child deserves help? Absolutely. Because as most of you know, I am a teacher. The idea of education as a right is important to me. The idea that education should be accessible to everybody is important to me. Is this the way to go about it? Absolutely not. Now, clearly, this becomes a conversation pretty quickly. So Foodie says she is not exploiting and that she's very close to them. She has been in this country barely a month. And she is socially inept and doesn't speak the language. I don't really see her ability to get close to them. But regardless, she wants to help out. She says getting the money is complicated. Good, I'm sure that will help. She'll probably have to go to another country. She did say Lebanon and then she took that out. But, this blew my mind, they know someone who can go for them. Excuse me? Who the hell are you trusting to go and get your money? Assuming I even believed you would do that, what would you do if they came back and said, oh, sorry, I got held up and someone stole it, I was robbed? Why would you trust somebody? Now, she says they're going to go and get it, which, okay, at least it's yourself. But that seems a different story to what she's saying here, which is crazy. The risk she would be taking. And it also is a lot of effort to organise even without that risk. So do you really think she's going to do that? No. She might go on a money run at some point, but there's so many issues with how she's doing this. Outside of the obvious safety issues of money running, this whole situation will blow up in Foodie's face. Hopefully it doesn't negatively impact the family in the process. But Foodie at least knows that these things don't work out because she did it recently. Her community is not the place to bring this little girl, as is evidenced from the horrible messages in her chat. And she has a terrible history when it comes to raising money online and her honesty and transparency. And making the money less accessible from where she is isn't going to help that. She says that people should just put her, Foodie, aside and think of the little girl instead. And as she's doing this, she's like turning to this little girl, telling her to make little hearts, telling her to thank people for the donations in a way that really sat uncomfortably with me. Foodie says that the little girl has a very loving family, that the school is a financial obstacle. I want to know what steps brought Foodie here to sitting with their daughter on camera asking for money. Because like I say, I recognize that her parents may be in a situation where they themselves are vulnerable and don't feel that they have any other options and they need help. It doesn't seem that the family have much or any English, and there's no reason for them at a glance to see that her channel gets the kind of attention it gets. So they may just be too trusting of her. But how did this become this? Whose idea was it for her to turn on that camera? Did the family suggest it? Did Salah suggest it because he was in support in the background? Did Foodie suggest it, which would be terrible because she's the person with the full knowledge here? And going back to this idea of Foodie could do this without involving her audience with not a lot of inconvenience to herself in terms of losing that money, at around the 41-minute mark, Foodie says that Salah can just give the money now and Foodie can worry about getting hers later. Now, she said this to make herself look just better, being like, oh, no, like we'll give it straight away. Look, I'm trustworthy, we don't mind. If they can do that, why not just do it? Like, if they don't have need of the immediate money to the sense that they can give it to this family, why not just give it? Because she's not going to receive the money that she has raised in the name of this little girl for at least another, month? It's before the end of July here, so she'll receive it in next month. So they can obviously live without the cash for a period of time. And that period of time apparently involves them moving into his family home because she said she was only renting the place they're in for a month. So this entire stream was disgusting morally and unnecessary financially. Anyway, that's where I am with this. I don't often sit here actively wishing ill, and I would like this girl to get the help she needs. But I hope that YouTube takes notice of this because this is unacceptable and it sets a terrible precedent. The whole thing has left a terrible taste in my mouth, and I suppose we should leave it there. I know a lot of people are outraged. Please be careful with your language down in the comments. I get it, but please. Also, a lot of people like to hashtag and link down in my comments. I have those automatically blocked, so if you do, your comment may well disappear. Just as a point, because I know these moments tend to bring out a lot of emotions, rightly so. So just letting you know. Okay, everybody, thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.